Okay, Maharaj. So we are Zoom is giving some issues with Facebook. So you are live on YouTube now.
So you just tell me what to do. Do
You
I
can
start talking?
Start, yes.
Nama Om. Thank you very much. Is that a little too loud for you guys in here? Turn it down a little bit. No, it's too heavy. Down a little bit. Well, you decide, but it's like the voice of God. You will surrender. I know, but it's a little too loud. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gopravani Pacharani Nirvasesha Sunyavari Paskachata Satarani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So now how do I do this? A fly's harassing me. How do we, now what we want to do, help me out, Mukunda. How do we get rid of these, because it's blocking the middle of the screen. How do we get rid of these folks? Oh, well, we're share screen, aren't we?
I don't think so.
Are you sure we're not sharing screen?
Yes, you are a co-host.
Yeah, so, but my question is, how do I get rid of these people?
Oh, you have to change the view.
Yeah.
On top, you can.
Oh, we have speaker's view.
Yeah.
Well, what's, you know? No. What do we do, my friend? See, this will show me all the people.
Mataji, is his screen already shared on your screen?
Yes. No, it's not shared. He has not shared yet. He has to share it.
Oh, well, hold on then. Got this fly that's unrelenting. Oh, Govinda, 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 hey. So why don't we see share screen? Should I get more?
Yeah.
Forget that, man.
Okay, then if you go back to...
Huh? Hey, Govinda.
Okay, it's about to share.
There we go.
And now from the view, if you click the view, you will be able to...
No, we're cool.
Side-by-side speaker, yeah.
Yeah, we're cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So now you can see the screen, all of our friends out there? All right, we're ready to go. Just as a sidelight, there's a story in the Mahabharata. And when Krishna, Arjuna saves the Mayadanava from the forest fire. That's a whole other story. But Arjuna saves Mayadanava. Mayadanava was the architect of the demigods and a great mystic. And because Arjuna saved him from the forest fire, he wanted to give Arjuna a benediction. So he's told Arjuna, I will give you Yantra Veda, which is the science of all these mechanical devices. Computers, cell phones, all of that, all the mechanicals. And Krishna told Arjuna, don't take it. It'll spoil everything. So instead, he took the benediction of, he got these 4 horses for pulling his chariot. But it's called Harsha Shoka, this technical side. It brings some benefit, but it causes a whole lot of distress, no doubt. Do you know we're off the track, but it's okay. What is it called? FOMO. You know what FOMO is? FOMO is short for, it's a mental anxiety that comes from social media. It's called fear of missing out. I'm sitting in my backyard. I've got I'm a materialist, let's say. I got a nice cool glass of lemonade and a book. And I'm a happy man, right? And I just happened to check my phone, and I see that my friends are all at some party. I think, well, they didn't invite me. Why didn't they invite me? I should be there. So I was perfectly happy, but until I saw what everybody else was doing, I thought, oh, that's called fear of missing out. Why didn't they invite me? And then nobody puts on their, well, not nobody, but most people don't put on their face page, oh, I'm miserable. Oh, I'm suffering. Oh, my life is bland. They always put on happy stories. Here I am winning the lottery. Here I am water skiing. Here I am, you know? So all you're seeing is a slice of the 10% of their life that they were happy. But you see that everybody else appears to be happy. My life is not happy all the time. So you feel insufficient, you feel insecure, you feel I'm incomplete, I'm a loser. And it's called fear, and it creates intense mental anxiety. People previously peaceful, happy, and now so-called, now they're seeing that they're feeling their life is defective, insufficient, and so there it is. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. So these things don't bring the great happiness of their promise. Anyway, we are talking about as the farmer has two activities, the rice farmer, he has to plant in the rice shoots and he has to pull out the weeds. So we are talking from Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami is saying the weeds that we have to pull out of our heart if we want to plant the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of devotional service, to grow. So this is called Jana Sangha, associating with worldly people. Whatever we associate with, we become like. If you associate with someone with COVID, you get COVID. Material people, well, here it is. I think in the next slide, let's see. Now, why? Again, the gift of modern technology. Okay, now we go. This is from Narada Muni, from the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Who could be a better authority than the Narada Muni? Narada Muni says material association, that's Jana Sangha, is the cause of lust, anger, greed, confusion, forgetfulness, loss of intelligence, and total calamity. Rising like waves from the material association, these bad effects mass into a great ocean of misery. The Bhagavatam is honesty in packaging. You read the ingredients, they're right there on the package. If we associate with material people who are full of material desires, what else? The living entity, how do you tell, you know, if you think, let's suppose there's a dead whale or a fish washed up on the beach. You give it a little poke. Is it alive? Does it move? Desire is the very symptom of life. The question of, let's do something for fun. Because they tell you, just make the mind free, make the mind empty, just meditate on the oneness of all, make the mind empty. Well, let's see if that's actually possible. So our friends out there in Zoom land and our friends here at the temple, I'm going to ask you to do a little thought exercise. You guys with me? Now I want you clear your mind as much as possible. And I want you to not think of the color red. Do not think of the color red. Try that. How's it working out? Rather, what we're experiencing is red, 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 red. The mind cannot, nature abhors a vacuum. The mind, we're always thinking of something. Here's one for you. You know, the Zen Buddhist idea, and they present that let us just become free from desire. If we become free from desire, we'll be free from all the, you know, the Four Noble Truths, all the different stuff, and become free from desire. Let me ask you a question. Isn't the desire to become desireless a self-centered desire? You're following? I have a desire to become free from all misery. I have a desire. I have a desire to become desireless because of the happiness it will bring me, or at least the relief. So the desire to become desireless is a self-centered desire. We cannot become free from desire. So the question is how to desire. Spiritual desire, spiritual activity. So the point we're making here is if we're not filled with Krishna desire, Krishna activities, we'll be full of material desires and material activities. And we associate with people, their minds are full of material things. Even they may be innocent, they're not trying to be vindictive or mean or vicious or, But here's what happens. And Narada Muni's telling, here's the bottom line, the honest, the straight truth. If we associate with material people, we'll become affected by that association. And if I could give you a pill, here's a pill, you take it, and here's what's going to happen. Like you take a pill to get rid of a headache or a pill for digestion. I give you this pill, it's called the Janasanga pill. And you take this pill, and you're going to be full of lust, anger, greed, confusion, forgetfulness, loss of intelligence, total calamity. Will you take that pill? Oh, no, thanks, Swami. So we have to realize what Janasanga is. And that means, reading the newspaper. Well, I'm just watching a Hindi movie. What's the problem with that? I'm listening to my relatives. They're all talking about who's fighting with who and who's marrying who and who got a new house. It's Janasanga. And this is the result of the thing. Okay. The other one is lolium, being greedy for mundane achievements. Here's this guy, mine, more, bigger, bigger, bigger. And it burns like fire and is never satisfied. This is the key to the first step, like the first step in God realization. This is one of the first steps in God realization, to realize, wait a minute. The more I pile on the fire of the tongue, Buddha gives his fire soon. The tongue is on fire, the mind is on fire, the eyes are on fire, the belly's on fire, the genitals are on fire. And if there's a fire, and I keep throwing fuel on it, will the fire go out? It's just common sense. So we're never satisfied by more. So this is lolium, greed. Here it is. Where does it end? How much is enough? The rat is always chasing after the cheese. So now we're going to, so those are from Rupa Goswami, 6 causes of fall down. Atyahara priyasya, like that. So now this comes, I mentioned we're also going to take a few points from Krishnadas Kaviraj. Don't worry, we're going to get to the positive. But we have to know, like, Abhideya, was it Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana? So Sambandha is first we have to understand things. You have to know, before you figure out what to do, you have to know the relationships. Like if you're at a mall, you go to a shopping, of course nobody goes nowadays, it's all on Amazon and COVID, but you know those maps. It has a map with a big arrow, you are here. Okay, here's where I am. And then you see, oh, here's where the shoe store is, and here's where the, whatever it is, the electronics. So once you know where you are, then you understand the relationship where everything else is. Then you know, okay, now I know what to do. I know where to walk, which direction. But first you have to know the lay of the land, the layout. So to help us advance in devotional service, we have to know the problems, the disease in our heart. What are the anartas? So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's the section Madhya Lila, chapter 12, when Lord Chaitanya is cleaning the Gudicha temple. Lord Jagannath comes on his Ratha Yatra, and he stays in the Gudicha temple for 1 week. I think it's a week. And before he comes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all of his followers were cleaning the temple. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Krishnadas Kaviraj, and of course Prabhupada in his Chaitanya Charitamrita commentaries, the cleansing of the temple so that Lord Jagannath would sit on the altar represents cleaning our heart so Krishna will sit there. So what are the things that we have to clean? So this is called Kutinata. Kutinata means fault finding. And I tell you, Prabhus, this is, if I'm growing a nice little plant, suppose I have a tulsi plant, and I go out there and I pour bleach on the roots. Imagine, you have that picture, what happens? Pour bleach all over. I mean, it's horrible, just crinkles up and dies. This kutinata, this fault finding, we'll get to gossip in a minute. It's the sister of fault finding. But this fault finding just is toxic to the devotional creeper. Prabhupada explained that the mind, we have a choice. We are marginal potency. We have independence. There's the dead material nature. There's the spiritual nature. We're in the middle. We are marginal potency. We have a choice. We can fall one way or the other way. And here's an example. Prabhupada says we can train the mind. We tend to blame everybody else for our problems. But the fact of the matter is, there's an old slogan, I found the enemy, and the enemy is me. So we're actually the cause of our own problems to a large degree, at least the way we deal with them. So we can train the mind. Now, where will you find, where are flies? Where do flies live, Prabhus? Where do you find flies? Nasty places, garbage. I don't even want to mention some of them. But wherever there's a nasty, nasty place, so many flies. Where do you find bees? Huh? You find a nice fragrant flower. Bees are, so Prabhupada said that the fly is always looking for something nasty. And if our mind is that, well, we're always finding fault with the devotees, and well, we're just like a fly, and we'll live mentally in a nasty, nasty place. But the bee is always looking for something nice. And if we look at the good qualities of a devotee, that's our real. Now, if we're a manager, we're the head, in charge of the deities or the kitchen or the temple, we have to correct the devotees. That's our job, you know. But if it's not our job to correct somebody, it's not our service to Krishna, then we should try to see the good qualities. And I'll tell you an example. It's a Christian example. It's a good one. It's from the monastery days. And it goes like this. There was a monastery, and for us it's like an ashram or temple. There was a monastery that the atmosphere was not very nice. And the devotees were, the monks were, arguing and complaining, and no one was happy, and people weren't coming, there weren't any donations, and it was just not it was a heavy atmosphere. So they called the abbot, like the temple president, they called the abbot from another monastery someday. Come, can you check it out and let us know what you think? So he came and stayed for a few days, didn't say much. Then he was leaving. And so they said, well, what is your advice to us? He said, the only thing I have to say is one of you is a great saint. One of you is a very great saint. And he left. So they're all like scratching their heads, like, well, who is it? And they're thinking, this guy who's out in the garden, I always just thought he was a Sudra, just a day worker, but, he's always chanting Hare Krishna, singing. He's always bringing beautiful flowers to make for garlands. I mean, you ask him, he'll tell you some pastime about, Krishna and Radharani and the bumblebee and, Krishna's Vanamali decorated with flowers. This guy is really Krishna conscious. I never thought about it. And you think, well, what if he's the cook? He's always thinking how to make nice offerings. Like he's always reading some cookbook or taking some seminar how to learn how to cook. And he's always thinking how to make nice prasad for the devotees. Wait a minute, what if he's that guy? And then the person thinks, wait a minute, what if it's me? If it's me, I better shape up, I better step up to the mark. So in this way, they started seeing the good qualities in others. Prabhupada wrote me in a letter. Prabhupada said, you want to teach your godbrothers? The first step is to set an example. You teach by example. So the whole ashram changed. The whole monastery changed. They started treating each other so respectfully. All this fault finding and gossip was right out the window. They tried to set an example, not by, Prabhupada tells a great story, and it's from the Padma Purana. The sun and the wind, the Surya and Vayu, wanted to see who was stronger. They're big demigods, and they want to see who's stronger. So they said, well, let's do a test. And the test was they looked down, and walking on the earth was a man. So they said, let's see who can get him to take his coat off. I heard Prabhupada personally tell this story. It's a great story, and the meaning of it. So what to do? So the wind went first, and the test was who was stronger, who could get the man to take his coat off. So the wind began blowing and stronger and stronger. What did the man do? Cold wind blowing in his coat. What did he do? You can guess. What did he do? Parsara, what did he do?
He was holding onto his coat.
Mataji, what did he do? He pulled it even tighter and tighter and tighter, so much so the wind blew him over. He didn't take that coat off. Now, next was Surya's turn, the sun. And the sun just, the nice warm rays of the sun immediately took his coat off. And Prabhupada said, you know, if we pound on somebody with criticism, like the cold wind pounding, they just go into their shell. They just close up, and their heart closes and their mind closes, and they just get set in their rut. But if we have some affection and appreciation, and they know that we care about us, if they're offering us some advice, it's only because they love us and care about us. If they feel that warmth, then the whole heart opens right up. So for ourselves and for our service and for the temple atmosphere, we have to avoid fault finding. It does not help anybody, and it doesn't even help us. We have to live in that nasty place. Let us be like bees, looking for the good qualities in others. So that's Kutinata. We'll skip ahead a little bit. So, and there's a saying, tend to your own garden. This is from Voltaire, actually. But instead of worrying about everybody else, Jesus says the same thing. I've got to look it up. Instead of worrying about the speck in your eye, you know, the speck in your neighbor's eye, worry about the clod or the rock in your eye. So, you know, we're always worried about what's wrong with you. What about me? You know? They say, you know, if you're pointing with one finger, 3 fingers are pointing back at you, you know? So everybody understands. If you're smart, you understand that principle. I've got enough. Why do I worry about what everybody else is doing? Let me tend to my own garden. This is a Pratishta. This is another one from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's the desire for name and fame or high position. Prabhupada was in Tokyo for Dinapan Press. Remind me of it some other time. It's a fantastic story. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me. Prabhupada was negotiating the price for printing the Krishna book and the Nectar of Devotion. And Prabhupada had just given them a price that was so low it completely blew their mind. So the Japanese executive, Dinapan Press, the Japanese executives of Dinapan Press went to another room to confer. You know, Swamiji, we need to talk about that. So they go into another room to figure out what, you know, how to respond. So they left Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Brahmananda were sitting in the boardroom. And they left a young junior executive. You know, did they want any water? Did you need anything? As a minder, he was just sitting there with them. And he didn't speak much English. But, you know, Prabhupada, whoever it was, Prabhupada knew how to reach into the heart. So Prabhupada asked him, you know, what is he could understand, he couldn't speak so well. So they asked him, what is your goal in life? What do you want to achieve? What's it, you know? And the young junior executive took all the business cards of all the senior executives who were on the table, including the president, and he stacked them all up, all the cards of all the other executives, because he couldn't explain in English, but he got the point across. And very ceremoniously, he took out his own card and put it on the very top of the stack. In other words, his goal was to climb the corporate ladder and get to the top of the stack. So everyone, you know, well, I'm the assistant bottle washer. Well, I want to be the head bottle washer, you know. And so there it is. And it's this burning passion. Look at Trump. Sorry, I couldn't help it. You know, this burning passion for power, prestige. And you find it everywhere, you know. I'm not picking on him, but he's a good manifestation. So there's a verse from Bhagavad Gita. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy. I'm the richest man. There is none so powerful and happy as me. You know, the happiness of, what is it, Schadenfreude? I forget, it's a German word, and it means happiness in others' distress. It's not enough just to succeed, but you've got to see others fail. Then it's the full package of material happiness. So that's this pratishta, this desire to lord it over and be glorified and honored. And it can happen to us as devotees. I'm the best pujari, the best Madanga player, best book distributor. Oh, I'm the best GBC. Oh, I've got the most disciples. I'm sorry, but it's human nature. And we have to be on guard. I had a car one time. We always get donated cars. And in those days, we really had no money. And so we had a donated car. It was a Bel Air. I remember to this day. And it had been in a car accident, been T-boned, hit a T right in the side. And the frame was actually bent. You couldn't fix it. So the car always pulled to the left. If you just drove the car aiming straight, you would veer to the left. You had to point to the right. You literally had to aim like this to go straight. You had to compensate. We need to be aware of human nature. We're in this material world. It's Kali Yuga. We're conditioned souls. The default mode of material nature is that we will be infected with these qualities. So we have to be cautious. We have to be vigilant. Not vigilante, finding fault in everybody else, but we need to be vigilant that these things, if I'm not careful, will affect me. If I shut off the light, is there an interim period? Do I need to wait for darkness to come? As soon as there's no darkness, if I shut off this light, then it's dark. So as soon as we're not endeavoring and being cautious, a moment's inattention, these qualities will slip in. So just this example of a puri, we all know puris, they puff up very chapati, and then, so what is this fame? You get puffed up and it's gone in no time. So this next quality is called Jiva Himsa. Jiva Himsa means envy of other living entities. And we've got the 1% and the 9%. That the ordinary person is just slaving away. It's a rough, most people, the American dream used to be, if you were honest and you worked hard, even you didn't have a college education, you had a high school education, you could get a union job, and you worked hard. You had at the end of the thing, you had health care, you got paid, you had job security, and at the end of you could retire at 65, and you had your house paid off, you were able to put your kids through school, and you had health care and a retirement plan. That's the American dream. And all over the world, people were flooding to America for the American dream. Now, the American dream, frankly, has gone right down the tubes because of this Jiva Himsa. This is one of the people just more, better. And how to squeeze, like you wring water out of a towel. The poor people, people have to work at will. They can be dropped down a shaft at any moment. The Congress is hacking away at what every other civilized nation has free health care for their citizens. Prabhupada said the first principle of the state is that the people should feel no anxiety. You should be not worried about thieves. You should be able to have an employment that maintains your family, and you should feel secure. That is good governance. And these people cannot eat. You've got little grandmothers cutting their pills in half because they can't pay their rent. It's obscene. So that's a modern example of Jiva Himsa. Oh, the American dream. So I was explaining what the American dream is. Jai Shri Radha Jai Shri. Devamrita Maharaj, who is just a wonderful sadhu, saintly person, fantastic speaker. And he gets these sutras that just give you a crystal picture of material life. So you know what he says now, nowadays, why they call it the American dream? Because you have to be asleep to believe it. You have to be because it's not there anymore. The majority, they can't afford to buy homes. They're living renting. They have a huge college debt. They're living with their parents. They're putting off marriage. I mean, it is a harsh world for most people. But you've got this 1%. Hey, the ship's going down, but we've got stock market's going up. Everybody else, what is it? I don't want to, we're not politicians, but we can understand this Jiva Himsa, how it affects the thing. Stock market is going through the roof still. And people, they've lost their unemployment, they don't have a job, they've been thrown out of their houses. This is Jiva Himsa. Prabhupada said, because we're going to compare, the other side of the coin is Jiva Doya. Jiva Himsa means envious or violence to other living entities, other jivas, other spirit souls. Jiva Doya is mercy. Prabhupada said there will always be three categories of life. There will always be three stations, strata. There will always be people who are less fortunate than us. We maybe only have a grass hut. There'll be somebody who doesn't have a house. You know, whatever it is, there's always someone who's... So there's always people that are in a less fortunate position. There'll always be people that are equal with us. And there'll always be people who are more fortunate. More fortunate, equal, less fortunate. It's always there in every station of life. Prabhupada said, is it the next step slide? Okay, hold on. So the materialists, how do they see these three strata? Someone who's less fortunate than me, someone who may be dependent on me, we exploit, we take advantage, we push down, squeeze out their life force, we criticize, we take advantage of. So that's materialist, someone who's less fortunate. Someone's on the same plane with us, we compete. We try to knock them out of the way, push them down, poke them in the eyes, and jump over them. It's competition. And someone who's superior to us, more fortunate, we're envious. We criticize, we fault find, we're envious. There's a great poem, it's called if anyone's got time, it's by Edward Arling Robinson. It's called Richard Cory. I learned it in high school, I'll never forget it. It's a fantastic poem. Richard Cory, Google it when you get home, about this envy of others. It's a fantastic poem. Prabhupada quoted Shakespeare, he quoted, different poets, it's all right. So a materialist lives in a world where he's exploiting and being cruel to others. He's completely competing and in anxiety, and he's envious. Now, how does a Vaishnava, how does a devotee see it? Same strata is there. Someone who's less fortunate, a devotee is merciful, a devotee is compassionate. How can I help them? I told the story yesterday about food for life, A devotee is kind. Prabhupada said, a devotee's heart. One thing, a devotee's measurement, titiksha, tolerant, but karunika is right next to it, mercy. Prabhupada said the one thing a devotee, heat, cold, change of the body, we tolerate. But the one thing a devotee cannot tolerate is seeing the suffering of others. That's a Vaishnava. We cannot tolerate the suffering of others. So those who are less fortunate, devotee gives mercy. Those who are on the same level, we make friendship with. But there are peers, there are friends. We reveal our mind in confidence, we exchange gifts. There's a whole description, Upadeshamrita, how we feel. And those who are superior to us, more advanced than us, more fortunate, we take advice, we take shelter. We learn from them. So we have a choice, like the bee and the fly. We can live in a world where we're exploiting others, where we're envious and competing, or where we're competing, or where we're envious. Or we can live in a world where we're giving mercy, where we have friendship, and where we're offering respects and we're learning. Which world do we want to live in? That's our choice. So that's Jiva Hamsa, Jiva Doya. Here's just the opposite of Jiva Doya, is giving mercy to others. And that's what our Krishna Consciousness movement is, if you study it. Our business is to, Prabhupada said for us, we can live under a tree. Ask Premadati Mataji. I won't ask because I don't want to put her on the spot. Being the temple president is such a difficult service. You've got, I'll tell the joke just for fun. And because I work with I was a temple president for 15 years of my life. I work with many temple presidents. So here's the story. Once there was a donkey, because you should appreciate your temple president. You should be kind to your temple president. Instead of, don't find the 1%, miss the 99%. Don't be a bee. Don't be a fly. be a bee. So there was a donkey, and this donkey, whatever question you asked, he'd nod his head yes. Anything you asked him, was the sun out, was the moonlight? Yes, he'd always answer yes. So the local Raj, just for fun, he offered a gold coin to anyone who could get the donkey to nod his head, to say no. So many people tried, failed. Finally, one man came, whispered something in the donkey's ear. Middle of the donkey, no, never, no way, niet, nada. So they said, well, hey, you got the gold coin, what did you ask? And the man asked the donkey, do you want to be an ISKCON temple president? Ha, ha, ha. It's not an easy job. My father asked me one time, and we're a little afield, but it's all right. My father asked me one time, I was a temple president in Detroit at the time. And he said, how do you run? He was a businessman. He said, how do you run this place? He said, you don't hire people, you don't fire people, you don't offer, performance benefits and bonuses at the end of the year. How do you run this place? I said, well, by love, by inspiration, he said, oh my God. It was like, did not compute. So it's not easy. So there's that. We should be kind to our leaders. We should be kind to our temple president. Doesn't give them an excuse to do any damn thing they want. We're not talking about that. But this reciprocal kindness is the grease that makes the wheels of ISKCON turn. So, and what is the business of ISKCON? Why are we here? We could live under a tree. That's what I was saying. Prema Datta Mataji, she could just worship deities at home and travel around the world and visit temples. Fantastic. Why is she here? Because she wants to serve the Vaishnavas and wants to serve the devotees and wants to serve Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission of giving mercy. We worship the deities for our own inspiration, but so that people can come and be inspired. We have our programs so they can come and take prasadam, get deliverance. Prabhupada said, just for fun, and what's the time? Prabhupada said, you can follow my English? Can I ask you? What happens if you eat off a diseased person's plate? Someone's diseased and you eat off their plate. What will happen? You'll catch their disease. And every disease has symptoms, right? Headache, stomach ache, whatever it may be, right? So Prabhupada said, when we're taking prasadam, it's bhoga, then it's prasadam. So we are eating off Krishna's plate, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, we're not directly, but we're eating Krishna's plate. So when we take prasadam, we're eating off Krishna's plate, remnants from Krishna's plate. So Prabhupada said, we will catch Krishna's disease. And what is Krishna? Every disease has symptoms. So if we catch, by taking prasadam, we catch Krishna's disease. What are the symptoms? Prabhupada said, Sat Chit Ananda. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So when we take prasadam, we catch that. And they come to the temple, we're out at our festivals, and we have restaurants, they get prasadam. And Prabhupada said, if you catch Krishna's disease, Satchidananda, Prabhupada said, there is no cure. In other words, once you get it, back home, back to Godhead. So this is Jiva Doi, and if you book distribution, everything, our whole movement is designed to give mercy to the conditioned souls. It is such a wonderful thing. So this is Nisadachara, which means accepting things forbidden in the Shastra and breaking the four regular principles. That means breaking the regular principles. If it's a simple one because of the time factor. If I'm trying to light a fire and I'm pouring water on it at the same time, will that fire ever start? If I'm eating meat, fish, eggs, if I'm getting intoxicated, Mukunda's heard this so many times. I saw a t-shirt. It said, instant idiot, just add alcohol. So if intoxication, what's the root of the word? Toxic. I mean, it's right there on the package. Intoxication. So if I'm, eating meat, bones, and feathers, killing other animals, I'd develop a vicious mode of ignorance, mean-spirited consciousness, and I'm taking intoxication, I'm feverishly gambling. There was a man in our San Diego congregation, I will not mention his name, Nice man, successful IT guy, got addicted to gambling, gambled away the whole family's savings, his children's college fund, everything. It's a mad fever. So, and what to speak of illicit sex, it just destroys everything. So how can we, the delicate flame, the delicate spark of devotional service, if you're breaking the regular principles, it's just not going to work. So there's that. We've already went over that. We're going to move a little forward. Just for fun, I think we'll end with this and then take some questions. And then we'll finish up tomorrow. I was in Prabhupada's room, Darshan, and a man kept saying to Prabhupada, but we're making so much progress. We're making progress. And like I say, we're using computers, I've got a pacemaker, probably got a, electric mixer in the kitchen. I mean, we're not anti-science. It's when they skate out of the line, when they go over the parameters beyond the pale and start claiming, whatever. I'll tell you a Christian joke just for fun. It's a nice Christian joke. So the materialist is saying to God, everything you can do, we can now. You're making planets, we've got satellites, we can put a pacemaker, artificial hearts, we can get what we've got our, we can take water from salt. Anything you can do, we can do. So we don't need you anymore. You just run along. We don't need you. We got it handled here. The laws of physics, we can control the whole thing. We're going to make it great. God says, okay. I mean, if we think of Krishna, he's got his gopis, he's got all of his devotees, he doesn't need, Krishna's not like with a fish tank, simply watching the fish go back and forth. Krishna's not simply hovering in the clouds, watching the material world. That's an expansion of an expansion of an expansion. Remind me to tell the gold phone joke at the end of this thing. So, the Krishna's got the material nature is just going on by an expansion of the expansion. He's simply playing. But how did we get off on that? So the Christian joke. So they say, materialists, we've got everything going, we don't need you. God says, okay, fine, no problem. I got plenty to keep me happy. I'm gonna, I got Vaikuntha, no worries. But just to make sure you could, before you put your hands on the wheel, I want to see how you can drive. So let's do a little test. For I created life, that the Christian thing is that there was earth and God made the form and breathed life into it, and that was the creation of man. So he said, I created humans. Let's see how you can do it. So the person starts to take the clay. God says, hang on a minute, get your own earth. You get it? Everything rests on Krishna. Everything depends on Krishna. So the purpose of this slide is that even though we may become very good at things, we can fly so high in the sky, we can go so fast in our car, we can do so many things, but our mentality is ultimately like the vulture. This is how the vulture sees the world. The vulture, check it out on National Geographic, the vulture has a special eye. Its eye can simultaneously work like a telescope. It can focus and zip right in. And at the same time, it can have peripheral vision, bird's eye vision. It can have both bird's eye, and it can see from 3 miles away. It can see something on the ground. I mean, that's quite amazing. But what is it looking for? What is the vulture looking for? Something nasty, rotten carrion, dead carcass. So, okay, fine. You've got Las Vegas, which I love because what is it? Vacho Vega, Manasa Vega, Crota Vega, all the different pushing factors. So all the Las Vegas, all the pushing factors are completely expressed in Las Vegas. What are they looking for? They're looking where can they drink, where they can have unlimited buffets and stuff their face with bones and feathers. There's legal prostitution. It's a nasty horse. So even, and they've polished it. It's ad infinitum, but they're looking for nasty things. So we have, as Prabhupada said, we have a society, it's polished dogs and cats. We'll talk about that, but that's all it really is. What is the accomplishment? So And then, okay, we said we'll take questions. We'll take questions. But the joke I wanted to tell, just for fun, those who know our theology, our worldview, Krishna expands into Vishnu or Narayan, and via Vishnu or Narayan, he creates all material existence. So someone asked, from one candle, I can write many other candles, each of the same candle power. This is from Brahma Samhita. So Krishna expands into unlimited forms. He first expands into Balaram and Sankarshan, and on it goes, you know? And there's the Leela avatars, Guna avatars. It's just fantastic, all explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So Krishna expands into these forms. But they're all of, like, from one candle, many other candles. So someone asked Prabhupada one time, what is the difference between Vishnu, Narayan, who's sustaining God, expanding into the world, and God, and Krishna? What's the difference between Vishnu and Krishna? Prabhupada said, Vishnu, Narayan, is God at work, maintaining the universe. And Krishna is God at home. He's just playing, you know? And if you think about it, if you know a judge, you know, if you're a criminal and you're before the judge, you know, it's all awe and reverence, and oh, please don't cast me to hell. Don't cast me to the lake of fire. You know, if you're the clerks or another lawyer, you know, you're friendly with him. If you're his son or daughter, you're playing, you're riding him like horsey, you know, or, you know, holding onto his robes and riding him. And the wife, you know, she has some intimate name for him, and, you know, so he's the same person, but it's different levels of intimacy. But it's Krishna. So Krishna's Vishnu and Narayan is God at work, and Krishna's God at home. So here's the joke, just for fun. I heard this one from Shivaram Swami, so it's bona fide. I heard it from one of my fellow sannyas godbrothers. So the Pope, he's holding a, what do you call that? Ecumenical council, like your husband was at that interfaith. So he's holding in Rome an interfaith council, and people are coming from interfaith, and so they're, you know, whatever, Buddhist and evangelical, Protestant, Jewish, you know, the Islamic, the whole thing, and he invites Vaishnava. So there's this Vaishnava, his name Gopal. He happens to be a nice Brajvasi, born in Vrindavan. So he comes and everybody speaks and makes their presentations, and he speaks on Bhagavatam, Amala Purana. Everyone's very impressed. Pope is so impressed, he invites our Brajvasi Bhakta, Gopal, invites him to his quarters. I want to talk to you more. So they're talking so many things. And the Pope, it turns out, right by his desk, he has a gold phone. So, you know, a devotee's curious. He says, what's the gold phone? Pope says, oh, this is my direct line to God. You can call God on this phone. He said, would you like to try it? And he said, but the Pope says, don't talk long. It's super expensive. So the devotee has no anxiety. He doesn't, you know, God is not an ATM. Give us this. Oh, God, give us our daily bread. One of the first things I read in one of Prabhupada's books, he let Olga. And on one hand, it's the Mahavakya, the Lord's Prayer. And it's good that they're depending on God. Fine, we respect that. But Prabhupada said, really, for many people, oh God, give us this day our daily bread. It's not really love of God, it's love of bread. So the Pope calls, and he says, oh, no, he says, can you shut that off? There's an off button on that phone, you'll be amazed to see. The Pope, the Vaishnava, finished. The Pope, the Vaishnava gets on the gold phone to call God. And he has no anxieties, no concerns. So he just, Govinda Mari Purusham, you know, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda. He offers some blissful prayers, few minutes, puts the phone down. Pope says, that was 15,000, but hey, no problem. I got the money, I'll cover it. Okay. Some time passes, the Pope is visiting India, and he thinks, let me go see my nice Vaishnava Bhakta. So he goes to see his Vaishnava Bhakta in Vrindavan. And he visits the Vaishnava Bhakta, gives him a nice prasadam, a little kirtan. And the Pope notices that, hey, the Vaishnava Bhakta has a gold phone. So he says, hey, and the Vaishnava Bhakta says, yeah, I saw yours, so I had one put in. Pope says, I got so many worries. I got a lot of it. Can I use it? Right, sure. So he picks up the phone. He's talking for 2 hours. You know, oh, this worry, that, you know, what, you know. Finally he puts the phone down. And he looks at his watch. He says, oh, I'm so sorry. This must be millions of dollars. But just give me the bill, I'll pay it. Our Krishna Bhakti says, no, no, no. It's only 10 rupees. Pope says, how can it be 10 rupees? Our Vaishnava Bhakti says, in Vrindavan, it's a local call. You get it? Yeah, but the intimate association with God, that Krishna's God at home, you know. So there it is. So do we have, let's get out of share screen and see if there's any questions. What do I do? Stop share, that's step 1. And then we want to see everybody. Okay, Mataji, you can tell me if there's any questions. Otherwise, you guys, I'm going to call on you, so you better start thinking of a question fast. Yes, Prabhu, you're not off the hook.
How would you describe what spiritual science is?
Well, let's first describe science. The question was, how would you describe spiritual science? And we talked about this last night, actually. Science means I have a theory, I have a hypothesis. And then by experimentation, I have experiments that prove my hypothesis. You have a hypothesis, you have experiments, you have conclusion or confirmation. In other words, there's a methodology. I have a belief, I have a theory, I have an assumption, and I test it, and the test will give me a result that proves it. And that test can be, it's not emotional, that test can be performed by anyone who performs the same test under the same circumstances will get the same result. That's hard science. It's reproducible. Okay? No emotion, no sentiment, no magical thinking, no thumb on the scale. It's the basic scientific method. Now, we also have, just as there are your Einsteins and your, you know, Galileos and your Newtons, you know, there's also the great Acharya. They're studying the external world. And they're great explorers, and they've left their theories and their lab books and their writings. So there's also the other side. There's the internal world. There's the world of consciousness. And just by the law of averages, as there are people, you know, great minds that are inclined to explore the external world, there's also great minds who have explored the realm of consciousness. And they have left their experiments. They've left their lab books. They've left their conclusions. What we're going through right here, if we follow these steps, we're going to get to the final steps at the end. If we avoid these negatives, tomorrow we'll do the positives. If we follow that, those are the steps in the lab book. Those, you know, that you mix this and you mix that and you know, heat it up and it turns blue, or the sediment comes out, or the thing blows up, whatever, you know, chemistry. If we follow this, we will develop Krishna Prema. So the spiritual science, it's a science because it's reproducible. It can be anyone in the world, in any state, wherever they are. They begin the process. They will, in due course, become pure devotees of Krishna. And what are the symptoms? Well, you say that. What's the measure? Hey, I can measure in my laboratory. The thing blew up, or the sediment came, or it turned blue, or, you know, I hate to say it. Before I knew anything, I think it was in 6th grade, I was taking advanced science, and they take a frog, a dead frog, and you hook up electrodes to it. You can make it hop. Because, you know, whatever, the heart's working on electrical impulse. I mean, it's ghastly, but, you know, you can reproduce it. So what are the symptoms? You know, you hook it up, you say the heart's running on an electrical system, and you hook up a battery and the thing hops. Well, that's pretty good proof, you know? So you guys, it's just sentiment. No, it's not. Because devotees can give up sex. I'm sorry to be blunt, but it is the most entangling, powerful force in the world. Devotees give it up. We were talking about envy. Devotees give mercy and see kindness and tolerance. You try that. You got the biggest We went to see, he's passed away now, Professor Dimmock. Professor Dimmock was in charge of the Indology and Sanskrit department at the University of Chicago. It is, forget Harvard, forget Columbia, forget, the best Sanskrit school in the world. Better than Banaras University. The best Sanskrit school in the world. I don't know what it is now, but it used to be at the University of Chicago. This guy was the dean, Dimmock. He wrote that, he was, anyway, he was famous in the field. We went to see him one time to get a commentary for Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. When Prabhupada, in the beginning it had Allen Ginsberg and that French poet, and he actually gave us later on, he gave a nice comment about Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. He actually said, if I could have written this Bhagavad Gita, I would have considered my life's achievement. I mean, that's pretty far out. He's a top Sanskrit, and probably just getting one, not that, anyway, the Bhagavad Gita is the foundation, the Rosetta Stone for the Vedic literature. But Prabhupada went on, Srimad Bhagavatam Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we went to see Professor Dimmock to get the quote, to take him some prasadam and get his quote. And he lived on, anyone who knows Chicago, right on Lakeshore Drive. I mean, these are multi-million-dollar condos, looking over the view. So in other words, he was at the apex of material success. Money, fame, scholarship. We got there, we were knocking on the door, we arrived at the appointed time. He was so drunk, he could not open the door. You heard him fumbling with the locks, a slide lock, and finally, and then he was in his pajamas, he hadn't shaved, he smelled like a brewery, and he said to us, he said, I'm not quite in order. He said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Can you come tomorrow? We came the next day, he was, sobered up. But my point is that the devotees, sure we can measure. They give up all these bad qualities, which no one else can give up, and they become decorated with all these good qualities. So even before going back home, back to Godhead, there's many narrations of great, they say, has anyone gone and come back? Yeah, there's many saints and sages who've gone to the spiritual world and come back. So we've got you on that side too. But even within this life, even with our own life, that which others cannot achieve, devotees, by following the science and the steps, the methodology given by our acharyas, actually become Krishna conscious. So it is a spiritual science in every sense of the word. Okay, we'll take one more question. Nice question, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, the poem that you referred earlier, Richard Corey, is that by Arlington Robinson?
That's the one. Okay. And I don't want to, I can paraphrase it, but I don't want to, the point is, I'll tell you a story, quick story, and then maybe we should end or close to it. Oh, the question, she was just asking who was it was Edward Arlene Robinson. She was asking who the poet of that, the author of that. But along the lines, this is a hint about the Richard Corey. It's from Padma Purana. There was a farmer working in the field. And it's hot, and you've got to have a bull, steer him, and, bending over, tough work. So the farmer was thinking, I'm working so hard in the field, and for what? The tax man comes, oh, I'm sorry, I have to take my grain, and I go to the grain merchant. And when I go to the grain merchant, he haggles me over the price, even though it's first-class basmati rice. He tells me, it's Texmati or whatever, and, it's such a, I'm working so hard, and I take everything to the grain merchant, and if only I was the grain merchant. The farmer's thinking, if I was the grain merchant, I would be so happy. Indoor, AC, sitting down, all I got to do, I got a hired worker who runs the scale. I'd be so happy if I was the grain merchant. Now, what is the grain merchant thinking? The grain merchant is thinking, I got to hassle with these farmers. They're always trying to slip in, they're mixing Texmati with basmati, and they got the thumb on the scale, and it's just, and why? Whatever I do, I have to give 25%, 30% goes to the tax man. If I was the tax man, I'd be happy. What does he doesn't have any work. He just comes and takes everybody's money. I don't want to be a tax man. Now, what is the tax man thinking? There's only two more, don't worry. Tax man and one more. So what is the tax man thinking? Tax man's thinking, nobody likes me. And if you think about it, you're at a wedding or somewhere, tax man knocks on your door. You see the truck pulls up IRS, and he's knocking on your door. Shut the lights off, lock the door, hide under the bed. Nobody home. Try next door. You know, nobody wants to mix with a tax man. So he thinks, you know, I'm ruining my reputation. Nobody likes me. I don't get invited to any parties. Then why? Whatever I collect, I give to the king. If only I could be the king, I'd be so happy. Now, king's sitting on his throne, the bar, he's got to manage the assembly, and, you know, he's got envious people that want to take over the throne. He's got, you know, he's got to put aside, you know, whatever. What is it Shakespeare says? I love this line. Heavy lays the head that wears the crown. You know, being in charge, you got a lot of responsibility. It's a heavy burden. So he's thinking all this, you know, I got to maintain the military, and what about this king is putting his troops on the border? What's he up to? So it's very hard, you know. And all this, and all the ministers are giving reports and conflicting opinions. And he looks out his window of his palace and he sees the farmer in the field. And the birds are chirping and little butterflies are floating. And the king is thinking, if only I was the farmer, I'd be so happy. The purport is that everybody else thinks the person next to them is happy. But everybody in this world, miseries caused by other living entities, miseries caused by the mind and body, miseries caused by the material nature. We had a devotee, lived for years as a devotee, he was a devotee, living in the temple, got married, has to maintain his family, got a job, worked his way up, got a brand new house, got a beautiful car, living in Alachua. I'll tell you, it's Kalakanta. You know Kalakanta? Wonderful devotee. Sinkhole opened up, and within 24 hours, they have limestone caverns underneath, and sometimes they collapse. You have no idea that his whole house and brand new car sunk into a limestone. Everything. Now, luckily, by Krishna's grace, he got insurance, he got a better car and a new house. You see, actually, it was Krishna's mercy. It all worked out, you know. But, so there it is. Everybody's suffering in this world, and we think somebody else is happy. So that Edward Arling Robinson poem, it just, he says it so nicely. So you can read that. Any other question? Let's take one more.
I don't know. Indulekha, I see you're connected.
Well, say again, it's hard to hear.
I'm just checking if with our Zoom participants, if they have any questions.
Gotcha.
And
I don't have any questions today. Thank you.
All right, then. If there's no more questions.
And I just shared the poem actually on Zoom. Maharaj, you can.
Okay, give me one more question. Is there one more, Mataji?
No, not from here. The temple, they have any questions at the temple?
No, they're thinking about their service and what's for breakfast. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Good night. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Exactly.